Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's event on U.S.-Pakistan relations and Pakistani Americans in a Biden-Harris administration on the occasion of Pakistan's Independence Day. My name is Neha Dewan, and I am truly honored to serve as the National Director of South Asians for America, a national organization that I helped launch with an incredible group of South Asian leaders to help build civic engagement and political power among members of the South Asian community. Our leadership team at SAFA is a truly diverse family, inclusive of all communities that form the South Asian community. And we are so fortunate tonight to have amongst us members of the Pakistani American community who are trailblazers and inspiring leaders nationwide. I am now honored to introduce to you your host for tonight's event, Adnan Bokhari. He is SAFA's co-chair and also the Chief Operating Officer for the National Immigration Law Center. He is my brother from another mother, a total superstar and a very gentle soul. So I'll turn it over to you, Adnan.
Thank you, Neha. Assalamu alaikum. Jashne Azadi Mubarak to all of you. The Pakistani American community is 500,000 strong and has more than doubled in the last 20 years. We are clustered in New York, New Jersey, Texas, Illinois, California, and Washington, D.C., Baltimore areas. While a huge majority of our population is under 40, with a median age of just 31, we rank above the national average in educational attainment and other key outcomes. In brief, we are a robust community that is thriving despite numerous challenges. And today, as we celebrate Pakistan's independence, together as a community, we also celebrate all of you. I'd like to thank you for choosing to spend the evening with us. The SAFA team has organized an amazing program with top speakers from across the US who are leaders in their respective fields. It is a tremendous honor for me to invite our first guest speaker, the Deputy Chief of Mission, Mr. Syed Naveed Safdar Bokhari, to address our community on this wonderful occasion of Pakistan's independence. His distinguished career in foreign service and deep commitment to Pakistan and Pakistanis is most admirable. Welcome, DCM Bokhari.
Thank you, Adnan, and really it is my honor and my privilege to be joining you today. And let me first thank you and thank Haroon and all our friends from the South Asians for America for affording me this opportunity to join this very distinguished panel today. And I'm especially grateful for the timing because we are right at the almost on the eve of the Independence Day. So this is indeed the best way for me to start my celebrations of Pakistan's Independence Day by joining all the distinguished panelists and sharing my views and thoughts. When I spoke to you, you asked me to speak on Pakistan-US relations, but before I do that, let me convey my deepest admiration and heartfelt congratulations to all the panelists for the success that they have achieved in their respective fields. Let me just take a few moments here to say that the government of Pakistan is really acutely focused on leveraging the immense potential that is offered by our very vibrant Pakistani American diaspora living here in America. And from our perspective, basically this potential, broadly speaking, lies in three major areas. First, all of the panelists today and many of the friends in the Pakistani American, the larger Pakistani American diaspora are obviously community leaders. You also mentioned that, Haroon mentioned that. They are the true community leaders by virtue of their success and their standing in the community and the respect that they command. And in this role, we see them as an immensely valuable resource for mentorship of our youth, not only in the US, but also in Pakistan. And this is hugely important for not only providing direction to second generation Pakistani Americans, but also for guiding the youth back in Pakistan, which, as you are aware, constitute bulk of our population, on how to avail the myriad of opportunities that lie ahead of them in Pakistan and also in the US. We are already working on initiatives with the Pakistani American diaspora to facilitate development of Pakistan's startup sector. This is one area of high priority for the government, IT and startup. We have had an encouraging start, and we look forward to launching more such initiatives in near future. Secondly, the immense contributions of our Pakistani American friends, brothers and sisters in Pakistan's socioeconomic development. We have been receiving record remittances, and we have had unprecedented success of initiatives like Roshan digital accounts, through which our overseas Pakistanis, including Pakistani Americans, can now send their investments to Pakistan and repatriate profits. Other investments, charitable work, and other initiatives. Through all these works, the Pakistani American community has become truly an important stakeholder and partner in government efforts to put Pakistan on the course of sustainable economic growth, which is very, very important, especially in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic and the impact this has had on the economies. In this context, I would also like to acknowledge with deep gratitude and appreciation the highly valuable contribution by Pakistani American diaspora, especially organizations like APPNA, in providing much needed COVID-related assistance to Pakistan, and we are really grateful for that. And thirdly, the immensely important role of Pakistani American community as the bridge builders between Pakistan and the US. All of these distinguished panelists have contributed in one way or another in bringing our two governments, peoples, societies closer to each other. For us, this role requires all the more significance given Pakistan's desire to have a robust and mutually beneficial relationship with the US under President Biden. Now, this obviously brings me to the topic that I was assigned, I was asked to speak on, and that is Pakistan-US relations. Pakistan desires a comprehensive, broad-based, mutually beneficial, and a standalone relationship with the US. And by standalone, basically, what we mean is the relationship to be viewed through the lens of the inherent potential of the bilateral ties, and not through the lens of our relationship with any other country. But of course, for now, Afghanistan and the peace process is the main area of focus. And I'll just say a few words on this very, very important issue. The people of Afghanistan have suffered immensely due to decades of war. And after Afghanistan, the country that has suffered the most is Pakistan. Since 2001, we have suffered over 80,000 casualties and more than about US $150 billion in economic losses. We continue to host more than 4 million refugees, mostly out of our own limited resources. Having sacrificed so much, peace in Afghanistan is in our core national interest. So continued instability in Afghanistan, we know, can create numerous problems for us, including spillover effect of the conflict. And we do not have the capacity to deal with any additional influx of refugees. And our vision of regional connectivity cannot be realized without peace in Afghanistan. So we are also convinced, and the Prime Minister has said that many times, that there is no military solution to the situation in Afghanistan. Our support for the peace process over the last 2 years has led to key milestones like the Doha agreement between the US and the Taliban, and then the commencement of the intra-Afghan negotiations, and they also eventually reached an agreement on rules and procedures. And right now, we are still having these negotiations going on in Doha. But we are concerned on the developing situation in Afghanistan and believe that the success of the peace process is the only guarantee for peace and stability in the region, and is the best counter-terrorism measure. It's only through the success of the peace process that we can fight terrorism and extremism in the region. It is a shared responsibility that requires all stakeholders to play their role, and the most important being the leadership role by the US. No single country can guarantee success of the peace process alone. And we will continue to make every effort in coordination with the US and other interested regional partners to work towards a negotiated and inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan. But the relationship between Pakistan and US is obviously much broader and much bigger than Afghanistan alone. So we are also working with the US to build a broad-based, comprehensive relationship that taps the inherent potential of our bilateral ties by promoting cooperation in economic, trade, and investment sectors. Public health, COVID cooperation is one such area that is basically very, very important. We have already received more than 5 million doses of Moderna vaccines, and we are very grateful to the US for that. And we hope that this cooperation will further expand in future. Climate change, energy, education, people-to-people contact are other such areas where we believe that we can move forward. We have had a good beginning. The two national security advisors have met twice, and a broad agenda for engagement is in place, and we look forward to building on this momentum. So this is basically the broad outline that I just wanted to share with all of you on how we view this the importance of the Pakistani American community, and really the embassy is there to facilitate, to provide all the services that we can to ensure that the potential of our Pakistani American diaspora is fully realized in a very comprehensive manner in all those aspects that I have just shared with you. So let me just conclude by once again thanking you, Adnan, and organizers for providing me this opportunity today to share my thoughts and be a part of today's evening with such a respectable and distinguished panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, TC and Bokhari. As someone who's been in the United States for the last 27 years, I can truly say that we can see a lot of the efforts of the embassy, of you, of the ambassador, of so many others really moving and working on several frontiers to promote collaboration and really to remove barriers that Pakistani Americans face over here as well. So really, really appreciate your insightful remarks and grateful for your time this evening. Next, I am honored. I actually did not know if this day would come, but I'm really, truly honored to introduce Mr. Khizr Khan. He is one of the most inspiring Pakistani American leaders in the country, a Gold Star parent who founded the Constitution Literacy and National Literacy Center, whom we are fortunate to have as part of SAFA's Advisory Council. Welcome, Mr. Khan. It is truly an honor to have you join us. Mr. Khan.
Go ahead.
Welcome, sir. You played such a huge part in mobilizing support for Secretary Clinton, giving a keynote speech at the 2016 Democratic National Convention, and did so much during the 2020 presidential campaign to mobilize support for President Biden and VP Harris. You're such a source of immense inspiration to every Pakistani American in this country for your leadership on so many fronts. Can you please talk to us about your efforts to promote civic engagement among South Asians in general and Pakistani Americans in particular, and your views on the increasing presence of Pakistani Americans in this administration?
Well, first, Adnan, thank you. I'm honored. Thanks to Naya Diwan, Hirini Krishnan, and other leaders that are among us for your wonderful work in bringing us together. I'm delighted. I wish to share, before I answer your question, in 1 minute, I wish to share my thoughts on the Independence Day that we are celebrating today. I'm so honored to share these words on this 74th Independence Day of Pakistan. Friendship between the people of America and people of Pakistan runs deep since 1947. We share the values of democracy, human rights, rule of law, and equal human dignity. Pakistan being champions, Pakistanis rather, being champions of tolerance and non-violence as mandated in the founding documents of Pakistan and emphasized by the founder of this country, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, saying that Muslims and non-Muslims, and it is very important to be said today loudly, Muslims and non-Muslims would be equal citizens of Pakistan. The world congratulates Pakistan on the celebration of National Minority Day yesterday. We must remember this, that Pakistan celebrated yesterday National Minority Day. These shared values tie Pakistan and United States into an unbreakable bond of friendship and goodwill. So to Pakistanis among us today and within the reach of my voice, I remind you that you are the people of tolerance, equal human dignity, democracy, and rule of law. I am honored to be among you and to extend this message of goodwill and friendship between the people of both countries. And Pakistan, Zindabad, I say. Now, to answer your question, the Pakistani American community and other South Asian communities in the United States, I have traveled throughout the country, and I have seen their participation, their eagerness to become full citizen. And you become full citizen when you are politically engaged, when you participate, when you are candidates, when you are office holders, when you are engaged as my wonderful leaders on this panel and today's presentation are. It is with that heartened feeling that I was given this responsibility of joining the Commission, U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. My onboarding is in process. I will be a little more at liberty to speak about the work that lies ahead. But briefly, I say this, that in the world, this pandemic difficulty has brought us so close to one another that these artificial walls of borders and nationalities really don't mean much. We are one humanity. We are one human being, one family, and all of our troubles are equal. All of our issues are same. We must participate equally and acknowledge the human dignity of one another with this sense of participation. It is said that if you live in democracy, you must participate. Without participation, you have no voice. So for all of our immigrant communities, our South Asian community, our Pakistani American community, I urge that remain engaged, remain a very participant citizen, and you will have a voice. This is your country. Its well-being depends on your participation. Make sure that you don't underestimate your participation. I have seen throughout the country, wherever communities are participating, the morale of the community is at a very high. They're hopeful. They're acknowledging their citizenship. They are taking full advantage of their citizenship. So I am humbled that you invited me. I am honored that I had these few minutes with the community. So again, I say, remain engaged, continue to participate. Biden administration is champion of diversity and equality. And as you see that President Biden and his administration is making an extraordinary effort to uplift all of us, to revive the soul of America. And we are all part of it. And I'm delighted that I was able to share these thoughts with you. Thank you very much. And again, to all friends that are hearing my voice, Pakistan Zindabad.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Pakistan Zindabad indeed. And thank you so much for your inspiring leadership and your pearls of wisdom. Every sentence that you say is just full of it. Thank you so much. We are so grateful to call you our mentor. Next, I am honored to introduce Miss Shamila Chaudhury, who is a trailblazer who served as the White House Director for Pakistan on the National Security Council in the Obama administration, who currently serves as the president of the American Pakistan Foundation and as a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's South Asia Center, in addition to being part of SAFA's Advisory Council. Welcome, Ms. Chaudhury, and thank you so much for joining us today. Ms. Chaudhury, you have played such a huge part in US-Pakistan relations, both in your former position with the Obama administration and in your current position with American Pakistan Foundation. You're also such an inspiration to Pakistani American women nationwide, considering a career in public service and running for all levels of office, including Dr. Jaffer and Aisha Khan, who are with us today. You had the opportunity to work with President Biden directly during the Obama administration. Can you share with us your thoughts on US-Pakistan relations in this administration and how Pakistani Americans can play a huge part in shaping those relations in the next few years?
Well, thank you so much, Adnan. I'm honored to be on this panel, and I didn't know I was going to be speaking right after the legend, Khizr Khan. I mean, this is a lot of pressure, you guys, but it's an equal honor to follow such great wisdom. And I think I speak for everyone when I say that when I saw Khizr Khan on the national stage speaking with his wife the way that they were, it really lit a fire in me to keep going on this path and motivated me to continue to serve. And as you mentioned, being an inspiration to others, I look at Aisha Khan and Sadaf Jaffer as inspirations to myself to push me to keep doing more. So we kind of give back to each other in that way. And it's a great feeling. So first, let me just say Happy Independence Day to all of our family and friends, our loved ones in Pakistan and in the diaspora all over the world who celebrate. And I have to share that despite my Ohio accent, I was actually born in Pakistan and moved to the States when I was 2. And so as I got older, every Independence Day, I started to think, okay, well, I'm more American each year I grow up in the United States. I'm still connected to Pakistan, but how do I celebrate this Independence Day? What does it mean to me? And, I spent most of my, adolescence and my adult life trying to understand the country of Pakistan, studying it from every angle, studying the relationship with the US and Pakistan. And so I've come to this point where I treat Independence Day as a moment to reflect on shared heritage and shared history. And what do I mean by that? So I worked on some of the most difficult, challenging policy issues in the relationship. Of course, people who worked on it in the 90s and the 80s, they probably thought of that too. But let me share with all of you my frame for how I understand the relationship, and then it will make sense how you can work on the good, the bad, and the ugly. When I think of this relationship, I think of 1947, when Pakistan was newly formed. United States was the first non-Muslim country to recognize the state of Pakistan. I think of US immigration policy in the 1960s and the 1990s, which expanded for a variety of reasons, but it just happened to impact our communities in Pakistan, enabling us to move to the United States to set up a new home and seek new opportunity. And then I think of all the civil rights leaders, the Black activists, the women's rights activists who pushed for these changes to the immigration laws that we eventually benefited from, so that we as minorities were actually set up a lot better than they were once we made it to the United States. So these are the linkages that I think of when I look at the foundation for this relationship. It's not just about security policy or Afghanistan or Indo-Pak relations. There's so much more here that if we look for it, that we can frame kind of our relationship on. And so that's what I want to I want all of you to think of it in that context. Secondly, good relations depend not just on two governments working together, they depend on a whole diverse ecosystem of stakeholders. So it includes governments, but then it also includes businesses, economic ties, and then finally, people. So let me make a quick comment on the government side of things, because I think DC and Bokhari did a really wonderful job outlining kind of the issues between the two countries. I think right now, the United States is going to be working with Pakistan on a very difficult set of security issues. They're not just about Pakistan and the US, they have to do with regional stability. They have to do with the fact that, a lot of governments are still trying to understand kind of the motivations of militants in the region, of the Afghan Taliban, and what are the policies of all the governments who are going to engage with these actors, right? These are really difficult issues. Now, the problem is that they actually impact the diaspora, right? Through the media, through the headlines, through discrimination. We can't separate ourselves from them. But I think that what we can do is put them in context. So recognize that our two countries are going to have very difficult issues that they work on from institutional level, right? But then at the same time, as the diaspora, as the business community, we can actually push for more space to focus on some of these more important things like business or economic ties, like people-to-people ties. I want to give you an example of the Irish American community. When the Irish migrated to the United States, they were discriminated against. They moved to New York and then they left New York because there was no space for them. And eventually this community rose up and started working really hard to, took care of itself, actually started to give back to Ireland. And then the economic connections grew from there between the two countries. And then the governments came together because of those people-to-people ties. And I see this happening with Pakistanis, but not in a short-term way. We have to think long-term. We have to think big picture. How can the diaspora actually improve relations? There is a danger. I will say it. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. There is a danger in any diaspora being politicized in foreign policy. We want to be very conscious of that. We don't want to kind of get involved in foreign policy in a negative way. However, the connectivity that our community has to Pakistan and the hugely generous philanthropy and attitudes of giving back mean that we can do a lot of good while governments sort out their difficult issues, right? And Adnan, you already mentioned that a big majority of our population is very young. And so that speaks volumes to all that we can accomplish. We have a long trajectory ahead of ourselves. We're also still very connected to Pakistan. We want to be connected to Pakistan, and social media technology enables all of this, right? So the tools are actually at our disposal to do so. And now we need to create that interconnectivity. So it's wonderful that we have taken care of ourselves. We've put ourselves into good schools, graduate schools. We've gone into these wonderful professions, which create financial stability for us. But now it's time to do more. So on Independence Day, it's a time for us to reflect on how we can do more to advance kind of the image of who we are, to show people who we actually are. And I'm going to leave you with some very tangible things to do, because in my job every day, people ask, well, what can we do? We need ideas. One thing, and I've learned this from other communities. One is fund the arts, fund arts and culture, show people who you are, show people what being Pakistani American means, show them what your experience of Pakistan is. This isn't just kind of talking to your friends, although you should do that. It's about putting money into institutions in the long run. This is called philanthropy, right? Also, support the study of indigenous languages. I would love for Americans to go to American universities and be able to study Urdu. Why? Because through language study, you then become much more familiar with culture, with the people. When you read a headline, it's not so sensational anymore because it's been normalized for you. These things are very doable, and other communities have done them before us. So we have lots of good role models and examples. And I've had great relationships in my current position with Jewish organizations, Black organizations who have shared kind of their stories of struggle and success. So, and finally, run for office. This is where, Sadaf and Aisha are amazing. Like, I could have never done that. Like, when I was choosing careers, like I remember thinking, oh, I would love to do that one day, but I just don't see anybody doing it. Who can I ask for help? There are plenty of doctors, mashallah, it's wonderful. But even the doctors, please run for office, show people who you are, what your values are, what you stand for. It's exactly what Khizr Khan said as well. So I'm going to leave you all with that, to motivate you to kind of put yourself out there and to give back and think about it in the long term. It's a long game.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Noella. It's asking us to reflect and also asking us to act. I think it's perfect that now we are going to move to Dr. Haroon Durrani. Dr. Haroon Durrani is the president-elect of APPNA. He is a graduate of Nishtar Medical College, a radiologist by profession, and currently resides in New Jersey. Welcome, Dr. Durrani. APPNA has a long history of serving communities in the United States, as well as in Pakistan, and has been in the front lines since the onset of the COVID. I know you have personally been part of APPNA's COVID task force. Please tell us about APPNA's work during the pandemic and how did it contribute to creating a positive image of Pakistani Americans in the US?
Well, Adnan, thank you very much for inviting me. It's really an honor to be among such an esteemed panelist, one of the panelists, Dr. Paracha, Khizr Khan. We had the honor of hosting Mr. Khizr Khan few years ago back in Philadelphia in one of our local chapter annual banquet. And what an inspiration at that time was. Our kids and community members still remember him, and we hope to invite him sometime soon again. Coming back to APPNA, as you know that APPNA is all Pakistani physicians of North American descent. According to the estimate, there are approximately somewhere between 20,000 to 22,000 physicians in the United States. APPNA is the largest professional organization outside Pakistan and second largest ethnic professional organization in the United States. During the pandemic, when the things started very early on, when the things started getting heated up, the leadership in APPNA identified that this is going to be a serious situation. We created a task force, which was headed by Dr. Chaudhury, who's an infectious disease specialist, and our social welfare disasters relief committee, which is headed by Dr. Aisha Jaffer. Both these committees got right away, and we started fundraising. We had APPNA at a first ever telethon. We raised about $200,000 in less than 2 hours. It was not only the doctor community which contributed in the fundraising, it was our Pakistani community at large and even non-Pakistani people. I mean, it was really very inspiring to see the way the people responded to the call. And early on, APPNA got into providing personal protective equipment to physicians in various parts in the United States. Wherever Pakistani physicians were working, they were calling us, telling us the needs they had in their hospitals, and we were providing those equipment to them. And we also provided a lot of personal protective equipment to the physicians in Pakistan as well. That was also a time which was a very financial hardship for the ordinary physicians or ordinary people. So we did a lot of collaboration with the local food pantries, with the NGOs in Pakistan, and provided food to the needy people quite a bit. And so far, and we also had a community webinars, which was titled as Ask the Expert, and in which we invited experts from all fields related to COVID and also related to the fields like psychiatric problem and other problems. And we were broadcasting these Zoom conferences in collaboration with APPNA and ISNA and other groups because we wanted to spread it as much as possible. And the people were able to ask questions to the experts, which we brought on our programs. APPNA does a lot of, so APPNA has basically two parts. One is the educational part, the professional organization, which we do in United States as well as in Pakistan with Merit and other we do a lot of medical missions through another committee which we have. And the more work, the community work over here is done through the 53 component societies, which are the chapters and alumni based in United States. So there is so much things in the community local level we are doing. I mean, there are chapters which perform unbelievably, like a DMV chapter and a Chicago chapter and a New Jersey chapter, which was a Rampanapan, and Alberta chapter. I mean, we were collaborating with them and they had raised funds and they were providing food and they were giving vaccinations. So APPNA has developed a lot of goodwill among the Pakistani community and also in non-Pakistani community. And we will continue to do that. We have a good relationship with the State Department. Through our advocacy committee, we have been able to resolve the visas issues, which our young physicians, the residents who get matched into different residency positions when they have the problems. So through the advocacy committee, we have been, and the result has been phenomenal. Almost 99.9% of the residents who got residencies were able to get their visas on time and they were able to join their programs on time. I don't know how much time I have. I can keep on going, but if you have another question, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Durrani. This work that you're doing, APPNA is doing to save lives and really also to promote a very lasting positive image of Pakistani Americans. Just can't thank you enough. And thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your remarks.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Abdul Rashid Paracha, who has done it all. A cardiologist by trade and a major philanthropist, Dr. Paracha is an activist by heart. He is the former president of APPNA and now a part of National Association of Pakistani Americans leadership team. Welcome, Dr. Paracha. Please tell us about NAPA's mission and goals. And while there are not that many Pakistani American political action committees, few do exist. So what is unique about NAPA's business model?
Thank you, Adnan, and everybody else for giving me this opportunity to talk about NAPA. But before I do that, I think I have been in this country for a number of years, so I am spoiling your 31 average that you talked about. The other, in about a few years ago, we had Mr. Khizr Khan at the APPNA convention, and I pulled out that picture that I had with him, and I think I shared it with you. It was such a great moment to be standing next to him and discussing various issues. NAPA stands for National Association of Pakistani Americans. It was founded many years ago, mostly from the Northern Virginia and the Maryland area. Its founder was actually a local businessman, Chaudhury Muhammad Akbar, with his friends when they initiated this organization. It's a federally registered PAC. It, however, differs somewhat from the other PACs that Pakistani community has. The NAPA empowers its members to raise funds and do activities on local levels. With their friends, they invite the local congressmen, raise funds, and then themselves give those donations to the local congressmen rather than giving it to the PAC. We feel that this approach of individual contacts is much more effective rather than PAC giving these funds. Since its inception, NAPA really had developed a tremendous relationship with the Democratic Party, though our PAC is both for Republicans and Democratic dealings. So much so that the Clintons were so much involved with NAPA that the Clintons were frequent visitors to the homes of one of the founders of NAPA. So to us, it feels like this is much more effective individual relationship than the PAC. Now, our goal is really to empower the Pakistani American community in each and every way. And as Shamila and Mr. Khizr Khan have said, that is our goal. We want to promote, we want to encourage the leaders of the Pakistani American community that's already there and promote new leaders to come and participate in this activity. We firmly believe that all of us should participate in the affairs of our government because as Plato said many years ago, if you don't participate in the affairs yourself, then you wind up being ruled by the fools. That was his quote. So we believe in that quote. At the same time that we want to be active in the local community, we also have a deep-rooted love for Pakistan and Pakistani people. I have been here more than 50 years, and anything that happens in Pakistan obviously affects me as much as if I was living in Pakistan. And as Haroon Durrani has said, whenever there is a disaster in Pakistan, our association, which I'm a part of, APPNA, does everything that they can to help Pakistanis. So we want, as a member of the Pakistani American community, that our government, our congressional leaders develop relationship with Pakistan on a just, honorable, and fair values, so the two countries can get along with each other. Because we do live here, but all our families and other people are still in Pakistan. So any difficulty that they get, we feel it here. That in the same spirit, many of us were in the room where the congressional hearings were held on Kashmir in October 2019. NAPA was able to help and educate some of the congressional leaders from our area, to name Spanberger from Richmond, Ilhan Umar from Minnesota, David Trone and M3 Brown from Maryland area. And these congressional people then had some pointed questions in the hearing. So I think the involvement of our living here can create really a lasting bond between US and Pakistan. And sometime I wonder, and I've told many of our congressmen that I do not understand why America cannot have a good relationship with each and every country in the world. Because everybody from the world lives here. All the intellect, comes up here and live here. So we have an opportunity to do that. Our goal for the next a year or two or whatever time period is that we want to develop very good relationship with at least 30 members of the Congress, that we can have good and can call upon them at the time of crisis. We also want to, like I said before, help the committed leaders of our community and promote new leaders. And I would mention Aisha Khan, like people, so they can come up. We want to also prepare Pakistani American community to eventually hold federal position, federal offices. And we also hope that we can elect a Pakistani American to the Congress in the coming years. So with that, I want to thank all of you to give me the opportunity, and Pakistan Zindabad. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Paracha. Thank you for your continued leadership and mentorship. It is always great to talk to you. Our next distinguished speaker is Dr. Rao K. He is the National Board President of PAKPAC. He is an interventional pain physician based in Dallas, Texas, a serial entrepreneur, a socio-political activist, writer, columnist, and blogger. He's past president of APPNA's Nishtar Alumni Network and Ohio chapter. Welcome, Dr. Ali. PAKPAC.
Thank you so much, Adnan.
Thank you. PAKPAC is one of the few prominent diaspora political action committees working at the national level and engaging with Democratic and Republican members of Congress. Please share how PAKPAC's bipartisanship positively impacts the Pakistani American community.
Thank you so much, Adnan, for such a generous introduction. I feel honored to be part of such a great crowd. Our leaders are here. We learn from them. So just to explain, I mentioned the mission of PAKPAC. It's very focused and simple. PAKPAC amplifies the voices of Pakistani Americans by unifying them and building relations with our policymakers by educating them about the diaspora. And we support candidates who are committed to federal policies that promote good governance, education, and security in Pakistan, and civil liberties in the United States. And we are not affiliated with any political party. So in just last year elections, 2020, we supported 50 candidates. We raised over $500,000. Out of those, 40 candidates won. And out of them, 6 were first-time candidates. And among them, 2 are, we say that it's important that most of the PACs, they work with Democrats, but 2 new, we supported Tony Gonzalez and Ronnie Jackson, Admiral Ronnie Jackson. They both are from Texas, and first time they came in Congress, and we have great relationship with them. So PAKPAC, since its inception in, I believe, 2000, it's been working great, but in the last 5 to 6 years, it's been like really out there. So on Kashmir, just as an example, you must have heard many statements, so much work, but PAKPAC is the only organization that we were able to have a bipartisan letter, which was signed by 37 congressmen. And thank you so much. You were part of that team who went door to door. And Dr. Paracha here, Dr. Chaudhury is not here, but they all were part of that. So you can see, so this is the influence we are talking about. But it does not mean that what PAKPAC is doing, others are not doing much or they cannot do it. PAKPAC helps all the organization. We believe we can have million organization. And each organization, since its inception, starts sharing our homework. PAKPAC helped APPAC since its inception. Ijaz is really good friend. We worked together when I was advocacy chair. Him and I worked together, and we got 100% visa clearance because we had connections with congressmen. We used him as NAPA is here. Whenever they call us, you guys, Akbar Chaudhury, Rajasa, we are there. We work with APPNA. I think we can work with any organizations. I work with State Department as a blogger. So State Department contacted me last year. They said, because of outreach, they want to know what Pakistani diaspora is doing. How would they know? Obviously, there is no central channel. So I was giving them reports on APPNA. I gave them reports on APPAC. I gave them reports on ICNA. I did not give a report on APF because I contacted Shamila. She did not send me reports. So, but having said that, whoever we could have done, because, and APAG, Ali Rashid is not here actually. And if you remember, actually APAG was highlighted by State Department because of that work. Whatever. And we feel proud because, we are one. At the end of the day, people outside, they just recognize us as Pakistani. They don't remember our names. And we feel proud when we were showcasing other work. It's like taking the pride out of that. So this is the concept of working together. We need to understand that anyone who is working, who is politically active, he is or she is somewhere part of us. He is or she is somewhere helping us in a way we might not even see or feel, but that is the truth. And I will conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. We are one and we need to be one. So thank you for that message. Thank you also to Mr. Khan, Ms. Chaudhury, Dr. Durrani, and Dr. Paracha for joining us today and really sharing truly insightful remarks with us. Next, I'm honored to introduce Hira Sheikh, SAFA's Chair of Strategic Partnerships and Deputy Director for AAPI Outreach for Murphy for Governor.
Thank you so much for the very kind introduction, Adnan, and to all the other panelists. My name is Hira Sheikh, and I'm a proud Pakistani American member of SAFA's leadership team, and I'm the Chair of Strategic Partnerships for SAFA. I'm really honored today to moderate a panel with some inspiring elected leaders who I have the pleasure of knowing, and some of them are trailblazing candidates who are running for office. First up, I'm really honored to introduce Virginia's Secretary of Education, Mr. Atif Karni, who made history as the first Pakistani American ever appointed to a governor's cabinet as a Secretary of Education. Although he's an appointee, Secretary Karni is very familiar with political campaigns. He's run twice himself for various General Assembly seats, and he served as a key advisor in other high-profile campaigns. So welcome so much to Secretary Karni. My question for you is, your journey from a first-generation immigrant to a U.S. Marine, then a middle school teacher to a Secretary of Education at the age of 39 is so inspiring. So please tell us about your experience and what advice would you give to others who want to get political appointments to such senior roles?
Yes, good evening, Hira. It's great to see you and great to see everyone. And thank you, South Asians for America, SAFA, for hosting this great event and bringing all these amazing panelists. It's really intimidating to see all these amazing folks and be part of the panel. It's also inspiring to see so many Pakistani Americans doing all the great things that we're doing. Happy Independence Day, everyone, Pakistan. Zindabad, as we reflect on the 74 years of history of Pakistan, it's also an opportunity to reflect on the past 74 years or so on what the world was going through in the late 1940s as it was coming to a tail end of a significant world war which had a deep impact throughout the world, and then also all the new nations that were forming and declaring independence. It's great to reflect on our past and learn from our past, all the great things that folks accomplished, but also to learn about things how we can improve on in our current generations and future generations. I'm just a history buff, so I really appreciate this time of the year as a Pakistani, somebody who was born in Pakistan, to really reflect as well. And then, of course, being American as well, even though I've been here for a very long time and came here at the age of 10 and have never been back to Pakistan, I still feel a deep connection. And to answer your question, Hira, what does one need to do to be successful, to position themselves in a position like this to get appointed? I think you have to be yourself. You have to be authentic. That's the most important thing. And your identity is really important. So being Pakistani is part of my identity, and really embracing that. And what does that mean? It's equivalent to being an American, equivalent to being a Marine and an educator. So that's really, really important. So the one advice I would give to anyone is just be yourself, be authentic, continue to show integrity, build relationships, really get to know everyone. And the last thing is really stand out above others. And the best way to do that is have your unique brand. What are you really about? And I think just reflecting on what we're all discussing today, and the things that all the great speakers have said, not to be redundant, but I think we have to embrace our identity and that contribute to American society in the best way possible. In my experience traveling Virginia, which is a microcosm of our nation, it's very diverse. There are urban settings, there are suburban settings. Northern Virginia, which some of you might be familiar with, is very different from rural Virginia, which has very different demographics. I take it upon myself very seriously to, whenever I go, to be the best representation of not myself individually, but I realize that I have certain identities that I'm representing, and I carry that weight very seriously. In every place I go, when they talk about my background, they talk about not only being an educator or having served in the military, but they also talk about me being an immigrant from Pakistan. In every introduction that's there, I've intentionally included that in my bio. I want everybody to know that I came from Pakistan as an immigrant, and I'm as American and as red, white, and blue as anybody else. And it's important that everybody knows that you can represent all Americans regardless of where they are, and you can be an immigrant as well, and also value your identity on where you came from. So that's really important. On a closing note, I just want to say again, thank you so much for everything you all are doing. I think this is also a great opportunity to connect and see what everybody else is doing across the country. I really thank everyone for your service. And a lot of you have emphasized civic engagement. And I really thank you for all of the folks who have stepped up to run for office. That is a great way to serve wherever you're going to be running from, whatever state, whatever different positions. I think that's the best way to build on and strengthening the relationship between the United States and Pakistan, really trying to show that we're here to serve everyone, all Americans. With that, thank you so much, Hira. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Kearney. It's a very well taken point. As an immigrant myself, I think you bring up very, very valid points. Next up, I'm honored to introduce, a Pakistani-American trailblazer and somebody who has the distinction of being the first Pakistani-American and South Asian to become mayor in New Jersey and the first Muslim woman to serve as mayor in the United States. She's currently a Democratic nominee for the New Jersey State Assembly and somebody who I'm honored to call a friend, Dr. Sadaf Jaffer. Dr. Jaffer, when elected, will become the first Pakistani-American woman elected to the New Jersey State Assembly and the first Muslim American in the New Jersey State Legislature, which is a very historic moment. So welcome, Mayor Jaffer. Your candidacy is historic and it paves the way for many more Pakistani and Muslim Americans and women nationwide to follow in your footsteps. What does your candidacy in this moment in our nation's history represent to you, especially for our Pakistani American community?
Thank you so much, Hira, for that introduction. And thank you everyone for your words today, and to SAFA for organizing this panel. I think I was actually quite shocked when I found out that there had never been an Asian American woman in the New Jersey legislature. I was actually looking at some statistics trying to find out who was that first woman, and I couldn't find anyone. And that really motivated me because I felt like we have to have that representation of diverse perspectives. New Jersey has a 10% Asian American population, and so it's quite shocking that there's never been an Asian American woman in the legislature. When I became mayor, I actually wasn't really thinking about that representational nature of my candidacy. I was very involved locally, but once I did have that distinction, once it became known that I was the first Muslim woman to be a mayor and I was the first South Asian American woman to be a mayor in New Jersey, the love and support that I got from the community and the ways in which different community members would come to me for advice or suggestions or trying to understand how to navigate the political system, it really motivated me to continue to do that mentorship, to be a part of this organization I saw, Inspiring South Asian American Women, that's specifically to get South Asian American women involved in the political process in New Jersey. But I think what it's showing us is that we have the ability to be in these roles, that we are electable, that there's nothing necessarily going against us other than the fact that maybe we haven't seen other people do this before. And I certainly can have those challenges where I'm like, who out there do I know who's been in this position who could advise me? And that can be kind of tough. And so I think it's really important that we form these formal training and mentorship programs for people to be able to connect with each other, educate each other on these kind of non-traditional fields that maybe we don't know many people who've been in before. And, another thing that I've seen in elected office is that a lot of people who serve, their parents were in politics. And, that might not be the case for a lot of our communities, especially relatively recent immigrant communities. But I always try to draw the connection. And I think, independence, Pakistani Independence Day is an important time to make this connection of the United States and Pakistan, India, getting their independence from the British, from British colonialism, and the importance of democracy and how much value we should have for it in the United States, as we should in Pakistan. And I'm always so inspired by women activists within Pakistan itself. And, I look to all those women who've organized the Aurat marches and are demanding more rights for women in terms of combating domestic violence. And we face similar challenges in a lot of ways across the world, but we can bring that perspective to our roles. And I've seen when I was mayor how, women would come to me who were facing domestic violence in the community, both South Asian and white American and people from other backgrounds. And that showed me how important it is to have women in leadership, because I really feel that those women felt more comfortable coming to me because they knew that I was a woman mayor and I could maybe get them some different types of resources. And similarly, I had people tell me that, some of the undocumented people in our community were afraid to go to the food pantries because they thought that they might have to face immigration enforcement of some sort. And so we came up with ways to deliver that food aid to those people. And when I raised these issues with other mayors that I was speaking with, they seemed very surprised because they hadn't heard about these issues, but they didn't come from an immigrant background. And so, people from those immigrant communities maybe felt more comfortable letting me know about the challenges that they were facing. So, these are some concrete ways, some concrete examples that I think show how important it is that we do get involved, that we do run. And all of the research that I've read has shown that women and minorities win elections at the same rate as anyone else. They just don't run as often. And I'm not saying that it's easy. There are definitely a lot of challenges, but there's a lot of benefits as well. And we have to grow the capacity of our communities to have power, to have influence, to have the seat at the table that we all deserve. And I really look forward to more of this conversation. And, if anybody is interested in running for office, please do reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And I hope to see more representation from our communities in elected office in the years to come.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And I want to personally thank you for your mentorship, just because you're a mentor to me, but also to so many other people on this call. So we are truly inspired by you. Next, I'm honored to introduce Dr. Angelo Farooq, who is attempting to make history by becoming the first Pakistani American and the first South Asian elected to California state legislature. Dr. Farooq has the honor of being appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom as the chairman of the California Workforce Development Board, and he was a core member of VP Kamala Harris's National Finance Committee during her presidential campaign. Welcome, Dr. Farooq. Now, California has the third largest population of Pakistani Americans, with more than 40,000 calling the state their home, and your candidacy will not only energize the Pakistani American community to get more engaged in democratic politics, but also for them to consider running themselves. How do you hope to mobilize the Pakistani American community in California, and how can organizations like PAKPAC and NAPA help in these efforts?
Thank you so much, Hira. I really appreciate that thoughtful introduction. And I just can't express my gratitude and appreciation for everybody that was involved in organizing this, and what an extraordinary group of leaders. It gives people like me and the younger generation coming up a lot of inspiration and a great source of pride to see so many trailblazers that are making possibilities for the rest of us. So, I think what's important about when we talk about mobilizing our Pakistani American community, whether it's in California or otherwise, it's really about them understanding the value of civic engagement overall. And I would hope that whether it's my candidacy or the candidacy of or other very distinguished panelists and others who have come even before that, it can help create more awareness, because as Sadaf just mentioned earlier, if people don't see people that look like them, that have that cultural experience, it's hard to believe that those things are possible or how those things will apply to any of them individually. And I think by creating that value proposition about the democratic process overall, not just about running for office, it will instill a more sustainable and more impactful effort in the long run. And one thing that I think I hear a lot anecdotally is that so many people in our Pakistani American community talk about how their interest in politics is more focused about what's happening back in Pakistan. And I obviously am not here to discourage any of that, but I just think that's where people in our community understanding the value, and obviously I'm sure it doesn't apply to the people obviously in this audience, but just in general, about the value of whether it's local, state, federal, the role that it can shape in our lives, but also that whether it's running for office or other ways of civic engagement, this actually illuminates and expands the general public's perception of what Pakistani Americans are, political candidates, all of us. We are not just reflecting our communities and our leadership positions, but especially when we are the first of a representation of any kind, people view us as a representation of our entire community overall. And so I think that can help raise up more positive relationships of people's perception of Pakistani Americans, and for all of us to be able to showcase the phenomenal contributions that all of us make, not just here involved with this convening, but across the country, as mentioned earlier. I think when it comes to groups like PAKPAC, NAPA, and others, there's so many synergies that I think are possible, because for them, they already have established networks of people that are engaged. And I think whether it's for candidates or other people in appointed offices, these are really, it can be very important for us to be able to connect with those constituencies. But also by having candidates and people getting elected into office, getting into these positions, this can create a feedback loop to not just creating a more motivation for the people that are already involved with these organizations, but for many people who are not involved or aware of those things, a bigger motivation to want to get engaged and to learn about these efforts. So I think there can be a lot of synergy between those things. And I also think a major factor that's going to create more mobilization in our community is seeing more victories. And so we have already some great progress at a variety of different levels, at state legislature, at local political offices, including here in California. And I think the more that we can build on that as a brotherhood and sisterhood among all of us nationally, we can celebrate even more success and help uplift each other. And that's why I think it's important. I know in our community, we're very much focused on meritocracy, people establishing real legitimate credentials and track record of leadership. But I think, inevitably, when you have communities like Pakistani Americans who are not represented to the extent that we should be nationally on the political scene, that we're going to be held to a higher standard. And for someone like me, who's already been a local elected official for one of the largest school districts in California, I'm in my second term now, and a statewide leader in the governor's administration, it was very important to me to make sure that the due diligence involved in deciding to want to run for California State Senate, that to be encouraged by many leaders to want to run, but to also be in a position where you have that support, so that, again, the likelihood of success is increased, and it gives more confidence to our community to invest in these political candidates, because we can see the better likelihood of success overall. And so I'm very grateful for all that support. More than half of the statewide constitutional elected officials have endorsed me, as well as many local. But I'm looking forward to building on those efforts, and again, being part of our broader Pakistani American community on how we can be mentors and all support each other. And so I encourage, just like Sadaf's mentioned, however I can be accessible to being helpful to our aspiring candidates. And I really want to encourage people to start at the local level and get that local experience. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Farooq. It was great to hear from you and see you after having spoken for a bit. Our next speaker is Faisal Gill, who's actually running for Los Angeles City Attorney, another California native. He is a first-generation immigrant, civil rights lawyer, Navy veteran, and political activist. He has a distinguished career. His campaign has been endorsed by U.S. Congress members, including Karen Bass, Rao K, and Ilhan Omar, as well as Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. Welcome, Faisal. Since it's unusual that we find members of our community running for city attorney offices, tell us what comes under the purview of Los Angeles City Attorney, and why are you running for this position?
No, thank you very much again for having me here. It's a great honor to be among such a distinguished panel, and you guys, this is a great thing that you're doing. One correction, I'm not a native Californian. I'm actually from where Atif and Olam are in Northern Virginia, but I've been here for a little while now, so it's good to be here. City attorney, a lot of the times, us Pakistani Americans, we don't run for district attorneys, city attorneys, issues like that, which I think, and there's a lot of attorneys, among our community, and these are the offices that we kind of overlook. The city attorney in Los Angeles is the second highest elected position in LA. They're second only to the mayor. And the job of the city attorney is that any legislation that is passed by city council has to be first okayed by the city attorney for its legal, sufficiency. So it has to pass the city charter, make sure that it's, in accordance with state law, national law, federal law, all that sort of stuff. So in that sense, the city attorney has a lot of power. Any ordinance that the city attorney, the city council writes is always written by the city attorney. And so the city attorney basically, as I say, the power of the pen. Every single ordinance is written by the city attorney. The city attorney is also the advisor for every single department in the city of LA. So for example, the police department, and opines on the police department's policies as to whether it's what's legal, what's not legal. And then the city attorney in Los Angeles also has under his or her purview all the misdemeanors that take place in the city of Los Angeles. And there's a lot of misdemeanors. In fact, there are more misdemeanors than are felonies. So everything that comes under the city attorney's purview. So it's a fairly large, swath. I mean, and it affects everything. We've had city attorneys in the past who've done, arrested protesters. Right now, there's a lot of, angst in the community in Los Angeles, actually around the United States. And having a city attorney is, quite important, whether you're a progressive city attorney or a centrist or, further to the right, can really affect basically the movement that's going on right now. So running for city attorney is a very important position. It's something that has gotten me a lot of attention that people are now starting to look at and basically say, look, we need to make sure that we have, a city attorney that basically reflects, our values. And I'm glad that there's a lot of excitement towards my candidacy in that sense. And again, I certainly bring the view. I was born in Pakistan, came here. So I have that immigrant view. Los Angeles has a lot of, a huge immigrant population there, an immigrant population that is under angst. So in that sense, bringing my viewpoint to, to the city attorney's office and in every single law and regulation that's passed, I think is very, it's very important. And people will notice that. I mean, and just, I want to echo what the other panelists had said in the past. Running for local office, I think, is very, very essential. That's one is a training ground for higher offices. If you want to run for national office, Congress, Senate, all that. Local, I think, being in local office is great. The Muslims that are in office right now in Congress right now, they were all in local office before they got there. Before that, Keith Ellison, was in the legislature before he got there. Ilhan was in the legislature. Rashida was in the legislature. So I think local office, is important to kind of get there. And there is a lot that can be done in local office. So I'm glad to see that we've got, mayors in New Jersey and in California. We're fortunate enough to have several, mayors. And then, the previous speaker who was, a school board member in one of the largest school districts and, is a leader with the governor's office. So I think that's very, very good. So I would just encourage all, Pakistani Americans out there to look at offices that maybe are not the traditional offices, such as a city attorney office or district attorney. I mean, we have a lot of attorneys in our community, and district attorneys right now is key. I mean, we want to do criminal justice reform, and to have Pakistani Americans leading that charge, I think would be a great story. So thank you very much for having me in this, and I really appreciate the honor.
Thank you so much. It was a really inspiring story, and I hope folks listening can take the note of run for whatever's out there and whatever you're good at, right?
That's it.
Next up, I'm honored to introduce Aisha Khan, who is attempting to make history in the state of Maryland by becoming the first Pakistani-American woman elected to the Maryland General Assembly. A lot of people on tonight that are going to be breaking some firsts in their states. Aisha is currently an elected member of the Baltimore County Democratic State Central Committee, a local community activist, social worker, philanthropist, and successful entrepreneur. So Aisha, we're hearing from folks in our community that this is the race to watch in 2022. So please tell us why that is, and particularly about the Pakistani and South Asian community support of your candidacy, both in Maryland and out of the state.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adnan, Bokhari, and South Asian for America leadership for this great event. I am honored to be a part of this great group of people where I see some of my mentors. In reference to your question, to be honest, it's not only Pakistani community, but the Maryland political leadership is watching District 44. Actually, whole district is wide open with no incumbents. With the help of community, I performed very well in 2018. Last month, Comptroller of Maryland, Mr. Peter Francho, who is a leading candidate for governor of Maryland, endorsed me. I have been active in community last year when the people were, trying to avoid community, and I was busy distributing food in my district with the blessing of Almighty. I have a strong support in Maryland and all other parts of United States. I am very thankful to community at large for their support. Actually, I would like to thank especially Mr. Khizr Khan and Ms. Shamila Chaudhury and Dr. Paracha and so many others for their kind remarks. I am dressed up because I am at the wedding right now and sitting in my car and attending this webinar. Once again, thank you very much, South Asian for America leadership and all the hosts. And I want to wish you good luck. And I will say at the end, again, thank you to give me the opportunity. God bless America and Pakistan Zindabad.
Thank you so much, Aisha. You look great. Have fun at your wedding. So thank you also to all of the panelists who were part of this, Secretary Kearney, Dr. Jaffer, Dr. Farooq, Faisal, Gill, and Aisha, of course, for joining us today and sharing your personal stories. We're really inspired by you and hope you can share whatever resources you need to share in the chat with folks so they can know how they can support you in all the campaigns that you guys are running. Next, I'm going to share some messages from two inspiring Pakistani American celebrities, actor Iqbal Teba of Glee fame, and filmmaker and activist Iram Parveen Bilal, whose new movie, I'll Meet You There, was selected to compete in the South by Southwest 2020 grand jury. Following these messages, there will be a performance by Farah Yasmin Sheikh, the artistic director of Durrani dance and an acclaimed Kathak dancer.
Assalamu alaikum Pakistan, Yawm Azadi Mubarak, Happy Independence Day. I am so proud of you all, my Pakistani, fellow Pakistani Americans who continue to do well in business, arts, media, everywhere. Keep up the good work. It's lovely to see you all. God bless. Pakistan Zindabad.
Salam, hi, namaste. My name is Iram Parveen Bilal and I'm a filmmaker from the Pakistani and the Pakistani American community. It is a pleasure to be talking to South Asians for America on this weekend of celebrations. And I guess the message that I'd like for us to really hold true in our hearts is that on the backs of so many generations of immigrants, we are finally in a position where we are being seen and being heard. And I think it is important for a lot of us to try and invest bringing up our next generations in a spectrum of careers. Coming from media, I think that there's a huge need in media and politics and communication careers for us to be present. And I would also say that identity is such an evolving and complex issue. So having the patience, having the encouragement, and having constant dialogue is important between communities and within our community. So I hope you have a fantastic weekend of celebrations, and I hope that we can have it in our heart to continue dialogue and continue communications to grow collectively. Thank you.
जश्न शाम जश्न महफिल जश्न नजाकत और ताकत में आज रंग हैरी मेरे साजन के इस प्रकार धिन धा धा तिन ता ता धिन धा धा तिन तात्रिक धिन धा धा तिन ता ता धिन धा धा तिन ता ता माटी के तुम दीवरे जो सुनो हमारी बात आज मिला जगियो सारी रात आज रंग हैरी माँ रंग हैरी आज रंग हैरी माँ रंग हैरी मोरे महबूब के घर रंग हैरी देखा उत्तर देखा दक्षिण देखा और जैसा न को देखा
ढूंढे फिरी हूँ देश विदेश में ढूंढे फिरी हूँ देश विदेश में ढूंढे फिरी हूँ देश विदेश में
रंग हरी माँ रंग हरी आज रंग हरी माँ रंग हरी रंग हरी रंग हरी रंग हरी
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Zain Ahmad, SAFA's video production chair. On behalf of the entire SAFA team and our esteemed panelists, thank you all for joining us tonight as we celebrate Pakistan's Independence Day and the incredible strides Pakistani Americans are making throughout the United States. We hope you will stay connected with South Asians for America as we mobilize our community to vote in state and local elections this fall, especially those of you living in Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, and California. On a final note, I want to urge each of you to sign on to the AAPI Victory Fund's letter to Senate Republican committee members, urging them to bring the confirmation of President Biden's nominee for Deputy Administrator for the Small Business Administration, Dilawar Sayed, to a vote as soon as possible. We need to come together as a community to support Dilawar and have our voices heard. Visit bit.ly/confirmdilawar to access this letter. Assalamu alaikum, may peace be upon all of you, shukriya, and happy Independence Day. Thank you.